Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Barry Hudson. I'm the Director for Public Information for Montgomery County, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's press briefing, County Executive's press briefing. I'm sitting in for Lorna this week, so any mistakes I may make, that's because I'm not quite as good as she is. So we have as our normal cast of folks who are going to present, Dr. Earl Stoddard, Dr. James Bridgers, and County Executive Mark. Just make sure, as by way of just general housekeeping, that if you haven't gotten the opportunity to record, please indicate so in the chat. If you have questions and you're from a news organization, please put that in the chat and we will call on you in order. So without further ado, I will hand it over to County Executive Elrich for opening remarks.
So good afternoon and happy day early Thanksgiving, and thanks for joining us on our weekly press briefing. I know for a lot of people, this is a time of, family and friendship and giving thanks. And I know that in these particularly difficult times, people are probably very cognizant of the things that they are thankful for. At the same time, that Thanksgiving as a holiday for our Native American community is not necessarily a holiday or something they celebrate. And I think, we need to be aware that in the beginning of all this and the origin is not an altogether good story. But for us today, most of us celebrate this for the purpose of getting together and sharing with our loved ones and our friends, camaraderie and thankfulness for all being together. So I hope everybody has a good celebration tomorrow. I know I plan on having one. As far as our case rate goes, COVID update for this week, our test positivity rate is at 1.99%. We've got a case rate at 10.32 cases per 100,000 residents. We had 76 cases yesterday, including 7 hospitalizations. This week, many families and friends will be traveling and gathering with more guests around the dinner table. From what we hear from medical experts, this Thanksgiving will be much safer due to the prevalence of vaccines. On this date last year, we were at a 7-day cumulative case rate of 207 cases per 100,000. So we're below half of that right now. We are in a much better place, and that's mostly due to our high vaccination rate. However, I urge residents not to be complacent. We all need to continue to follow the simple prevention measures that have proven to work since the beginning of this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly, practice social distancing, get tested regularly, get vaccinated, and if you're eligible, get your booster shots. And you can see by this chart the vaccinations in Montgomery County. We have 961,000 people with at least one dose and 825,000 people, almost 826,000 that are fully vaccinated. 91.5% of our total population is now having one dose and 78.6% is fully vaccinated. So we're beginning to reapproach those numbers we were at before, and we are definitely making progress in dealing with this. Let me get back here. My view has been obstructed. Bear with me one second. Now I am. Okay. As far as our progress with vaccinations this week, we're at, like I said, 78.6%. The big news this week is that everyone 18 and older is now eligible for a COVID booster. Boosters are available at pharmacies and through private providers. They're also available at county-operated clinics as well as at our partner clinics. Just remember the guidance for your booster is 6 months after your second shot or about a month after your first dose of Johnson & Johnson vaccine, if that's what you got. You can also take any of these 3 vaccines. You don't need to replicate the vaccine that you originally had. So anything that you can get is something you can take. Eligibility for boosters has been expanded, so it's good news for all of us. As we approach the holiday season and the winter months, so far Montgomery County's provided 182,000 additional booster doses, most in the state, even proportional to our population. This number is great, but there are a lot more folks who will be getting vaccinated over the coming months. But again, this is not like the springtime when everybody had to rush to try to get their first shot and had to struggle with the shortage of vaccine. Now we're at the point where you can do this on a 6-month interval, and no need for everybody to feel they have to get their shot tomorrow. So this is hopefully a major psychological relief for people compared to what everybody went through earlier this year. We have plenty of vaccines for adults, and there's numerous places in the community where adults can get vaccinated. This booster will provide residents with an extra layer of protection and can help us slow down the spread of the virus. And you can find information about appointments and much more at www.govaxmoco.com. Pediatric vaccinations. Our children 5 to 11 are continuing to be vaccinated. About 30% have already received their first vaccine dose, which is the highest number in the state. If you were on our weekly media briefing last week, I expressed our concern over the lack of supply. I'm happy to say that we heard from the state, and the Maryland Department of Health sent us an additional 5,000 more doses on Monday, for a total of 12,000 pediatric doses this week, because we can get the doses in the arms. But we requested 20,000 because we know we could deliver 20,000 a week if we could get the doses. Hopefully they'll divert some of the doses going to healthcare providers who are lagging in their efforts so that we can get more of these doses out next week. Vaccinating all of our children is very important. Coronavirus in children in the United States has already risen by 32% from just 2 weeks ago, a spike that comes as the country rushes to inoculate children ahead of the winter holiday season. And these cases accounted for about a quarter of the country's caseload last week, even though children under 18 only make up 22% of the U.S. population. So they're beginning to get hit a little bit disproportionately. The good news is that Pfizer reported data this week that their vaccine is 100% efficacious in preventing COVID infections in our 12 to 15-year-olds for up to 4 months. We'll continue to do our research and outreach, but I'm asking all parents to use the long holiday weekend to get your kids vaccinated if you haven't been able to do that yet. The American Rescue Plan has been crucial to providing desperately needed help to our communities, and we're grateful to Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen, Representative Jamie Raskin, John Sarbanes, and David Trone for their diligence to provide these funds. This week we announced $48.5 million in COVID-19 relief funding through the American Rescue Plan Act as supplemental budget items to be included in the FY22 budget. These supplemental budget requests consist of $34 million in emergency rental assistance to fund from the Treasury Department, $7.7 million for Por Nuestro Salud y Bienestar, a Latino health initiative, and the African American Health Program, and $6.8 million toward food security efforts. These funds will provide direct support to Montgomery County residents who need financial rent support or who are food insecure. These expenditures also expand county equity efforts by combating COVID-19 related health disparities through engagement with the Black, Latino, and immigrant communities. The Rental Relief Fund supplements the $58 million we've already received in ERA-1 funds and $22 million in coronavirus relief funds. These new funds are available for the county to use through September 2025 and will complement the existing COVID-19 rental relief program. To date, the COVID rent relief program has distributed more than $54 million in direct assistance, preventing more than 8,000 households from being evicted. In the current round of assistance, the program has received over 12,000 applications and has processed over 60% of all applications received to date. As one recipient noted of the assistance, there are no words that can express my gratitude. I appreciate your effort and patience with me more than you know. The program continues to process and accept new applications, and to review program eligibility and apply for assistance, visit www.mc311.com/rent relief. I want to speak a minute about the car rally in Silver Spring. That was a major disruption and an event that we are not going to tolerate. In non-COVID news this week, we want to take this opportunity to address the public safety concerns that have come out of this. On Saturday night, about 150 cars gathered at the Target on Cherry Hill Road, with some of the cars with tags from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Montgomery County Police Department was able to quickly get intelligence about this gathering and even gave Prince George's County Police and Maryland State Police, a heads up as they tried to disperse these individuals. This led all three police departments attempting over the next 3 hours to stop these cars from recklessly endangering our community. MCPD cannot, by policy, nor should by common sense, pursue these individuals in high-speed chases. That would be a recipe for disaster and even death. We're going to have to find other ways to stop them and contain them. They did their best to contain this awful situation, and I applaud them for their actions to eventually dismantle this gathering without any serious injuries. But let me be clear, the actions of these drivers are reckless, dangerous, and unacceptable, and illegal. Following Saturday night's events, I asked Chief Jones and the MCPD to do everything in their power to find these cars, as well as prevent this from happening again to the best of their ability. Although it is tough to prove by a license plate number that the individual in a car, that an individual was in the car that was registered to that person at the time of this event, we are going to make every effort we can, including referring all license plates we gathered to insurance companies to make them aware that these vehicles were being used in a lawless manner. This will enable the insurance companies to hike their rates and hit them in the pocketbook. That's the least we can do, but it's not the last thing we're going to do. We're also going to deploy more license plate readers in the county, and especially in the areas as downtown Silver Spring and other places where we've had incidents. And we're also to encourage the public that if they see reckless driving actions like this or are aware of a gathering of these vehicles, to report these cars to our police non-emergency number. And if your phone is handy, snap a photo or video and send it on to us. We only want 911 called if it's an emergency or an accident is witnessed. We don't want to have anybody taking up 911 spaces for emergency calls, but make these calls through and they will be responded to. We know it's a priority. We also want anyone who has video from Saturday night or any time there's reckless driving to provide this evidence to the police department. I want to thank MCPD for the work they've done in Silver Spring over the past month to increase their presence and reduce crime and public nuisance incidents. A month ago this week, MCPD launched a crime intervention task force. This is the crime prevention unit. They're looking for stolen vehicles. They're positioning officers in more highly visible areas and working with other agencies such as alcohol beverage services, permitting services, and the Environmental Protection Agency to address issues contributing to crime. They're also looking at their first month stats that we'll be sharing with you hopefully right after the holiday. As we continue to address these public safety concerns, I urge the council to join me during the budget process to increase the salaries of our officers, an increase that I asked for 2 years ago. Our officers are some of the lowest paid in the region, and is one of the things impacting our ability to recruit more officers as we see more and more veteran officers leave the force. By working together, we can make this happen. I look forward to discussing this more as we move through the budget process. I've also reached out to the Council of Governments to convene a regional public safety summit to address our shared public safety concerns. These incidents just haven't happened in Montgomery County, but they've happened in Fairfax County and Prince George's County as well. This is a multi-jurisdictional problem. A road like the Beltway makes it easy for folks to travel from one place to another, and we need collectively to share information and intelligence so we can do everything we can in all of our jurisdictions to minimize this and bring a stop to it. We're going to address this in our community, and we're not going to allow people to jeopardize the safety of our community. And having residents feel unsafe is simply not acceptable. No one should go to downtown Silver Spring and go there and expecting a pleasant night and have it disrupted by these folks driving like lunatics through downtown Silver Spring. It has to stop, and it will be stopped, and we will do everything we need to put pressure on this to bring it to an end. Finally, Saturday is Small Business Saturday in Montgomery County, and it's the day after Thanksgiving, and it's the beginning of the holiday shopping season, and I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage you to shop local and support our small retail businesses and restaurants here in the county. For every dollar you spend at a local retail business, 68 cents stays in our community, as compared to 43 cents at national chain retailers, and even less for shopping online. By purchasing what you need locally, you can reduce processing and packaging, and shopping local is also more equitable. Nationally, 28% of Main Street business owners are immigrants, even though immigrants make up only 18% of the overall business ownership. This Saturday, I'm going to be shopping and stopping by small Montgomery County retail businesses in Tacoma Park, Wheaton, and Silver Spring. These are establishments that are new to our county, as well as ones that have been here for generations. I encourage all Montgomery County residents to join me in participating in Small Business Saturday. Please shop small, shop local, and shop in Montgomery County. I'm now going to turn this over to Dr. Bridges and Dr. Stoddard for their updates. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and good afternoon all. Just a couple of data points, updates regarding our 5 to 11-year-old vaccination strategy. As we continue to look at our data, our racial and ethnic framework, we know that over the past couple of weeks, about 10.1% of our Black community have received, 5 to 11-year-olds have received their first dose. Conversely, 16.2% of our Hispanic population. Our Asian and Pacific Island population has received 16% of the vaccines, and our white population have received 47.8%. And we also have included those Native Americans who self-reported in the other categories, which is less than 1%. However, we continue to work on our race and ethnicity framework and to ensure that there's equity and access for all. Our pediatric first dose distribution, if you recall, last week, the Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services sites equaled about 61% of those pediatric doses being administered. However, that has changed slightly. We continue to lead the county as far as those providers of our pediatric first dose distribution, about 45%, as compared to physician offices administering 27% of the vaccines. Pharmacies and grocery stores, 23%, our community nonprofits at 3%, and our hospital community at 2%. So we continue to work on our distribution and our racial and ethnic framework. We are vaccinating this weekend with our Montgomery County public school partners. So this is a perfect time for those families and individuals over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend to receive their initial pediatric vaccine. Our goal over the next week or so, as we coming up, as we quickly approach our third week or 21-day second dose period, is to administer 13,000 doses as we did during the first wave. We have a significant number of clinics and appointments that we look forward to administering those second doses. We're also working with our Montgomery County public school partners and our community partners to look at the holiday schedule to allow those individuals either during the holiday season or the beginning of the year as we look at to continue our vaccine strategy. So we're taking that in consideration, but we will continue to vaccinate over those periods to ensure that all our 5 to 11-year-olds are vaccinated. We are making significant and great progress. So thanks to all of our community partners. Again, we have a schedule. We look forward to vaccinating those and those individuals who have time and the availability. Our health department clinics in collaboration with MCPS will be open this weekend. That's all I have, subject to any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bridgers. Just a few additional points I want to make. Number one, we often go back and forth with the state. I do want to, in this case, thank the Maryland Department of Health for recognizing our rapid distribution of vaccines and giving us an additional doses to get out to the public. Obviously, those are 5,000 doses that might have been sitting in a freezer or refrigerator for extended periods of time rather than being put into arms. And we appreciate their recognition of our ability to get the vaccine out more quickly, and we're committed to maintaining that operation moving forward. I do want to comment a little bit on boosters as well. I got my booster on Friday, and obviously I went to the Germantown, the Montgomery County Germantown site that Department of Health and Human Services operates. I was in and out in 20 minutes, including the 15 minutes that had to wait. So it was a very quick and efficient process. I very much appreciated their efforts. And I encourage everyone who's eligible, anyone who's been vaccinated for 6 months with a Pfizer and Moderna 2-dose vaccination, you're eligible. You should go and get a vaccination. The data that's coming out of the United Kingdom and Israel is showing that the third shot actually puts you in a place that's far more effective than even the 2-shot was originally. And so the body's immune system is an amazing thing, and the more it gets exposure or it gets knowledge and understanding of the things that we face in the environment, the better and more effective it gets in responding to those. And so if you are eligible for a booster shot, and that is literally anyone who's been vaccinated for 6 months or more with Pfizer, Moderna, or 2 months or more with Johnson & Johnson, do go get a booster shot at either one of the Health and Human Services clinics that's available through our website or any number of other places, pharmacies, and other providers. I want to talk a little bit about our employee testing program. So we finally got agreements with all of our employee unions this week, and we'll be launching this week with the majority of employees in our McGeo and FOP unions. We began just about 3 weeks ago with our IAFF, our firefighters, and obviously have been doing testing in those populations since then, including, in the IAFF, both a required mandatory testing for those who are unvaccinated as well as random testing for those who are vaccinated. And that's been very helpful for us in determining and finding asymptomatic cases of COVID and preventing spread in our firehouses as well as in potentially, in our interactions with the public. We've also seen, as a result of the implementation of this testing program, a significant increase in the people who were previously unreported to their vaccination status reported. Just last night into today, we had 124 new people come forward with their vaccination status, and 100% of them were fully vaccinated. So that has obviously increased our percentage up. We're sitting at 83% completely or partially vaccinated amongst our county employees without a vaccine mandate. So obviously we're moving very quickly to get people vaccinated even without that mandate. And we did talk a bit this week with the county council about how additional efforts that we're implementing to encourage our employees to get vaccinated, additional opportunities to get them vaccinated, and the like. The last thing I will talk about is we've talked a lot about Test to Stay with our partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools. I'm pleased to say that on Monday we did our first Test to Stay pilot implementation. It went very well, and so obviously we have a little bit more to finish out that first class experience. And also, because it was a small class, I would not want to identify the school until we get in close contact with the MCPS and work out the potential the personal protected information, because it was a smaller classroom in a school, and I don't want to identify those young people without their knowledge. And so we'll be working with MCPS to talk a little bit more about how we can release that. But we did have our first implementation this week, and it did work successfully. And so we'll finish out the course for that particular first class on Monday after the Thanksgiving break. Assuming that goes well as well, we'll be looking to expand that to additional classrooms and schools in the coming weeks ahead. So it's a big accomplishment obviously it's been much discussed amongst parents, but now that we've done it once successfully, we'll be able to expand that into additional schools and hopefully keep more kids in the classroom moving forward. So we're the first in the state of Maryland to do this, and obviously it's an important credit to how much we and the county executive want to keep kids in classrooms for us to make this happen. So it's been slower than any of us would have liked, including I'm sure our parents, because I've heard from many of them, but obviously we're making progress and we look to continue to expand that program moving forward. So I will stop there, and I think think we could take questions at this point.
All right, thank you all for your initial comments. And now we'll go to questions. Remember, if you have questions, please list them in the chat and put the news organization that you're affiliated with. Our first question comes from Kevin Lewis from ABC7. Kevin? Kevin? While we're waiting on Kevin, I'll move to the next person. Kate Ryan from WTOP.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I wanted, since you brought up the test to stay, I did want to ask Dr. Starter, can you see how big was the sample size? And again, we're talking about one single school?
Yeah, so it was a single school, and it was a full classroom quarantine, but it was a smaller classroom. And so there were, I'll say, less than 10 students in the classroom but they did stay in school on Monday. They would have been on quarantine on Monday, but they were allowed to stay in the classroom with the test to stay program in place. And so as per our protocol, and we've discussed this previously, because their fifth day would fall during the holiday break, they will do a closeout test to stay experience next Monday, and then they'll be done with their course for that classroom. And so obviously we're going to be looking to do additional classrooms moving forward into next week. But this was an important, obviously the first is typically the hardest in the sense that you have to actually identify the class and move forward with it. And now that we've seen it successful, I think that should give us all more confidence, including Montgomery County Public Schools, that we can identify more classrooms and we can do this effectively. Got it.
And then next steps, how many more classrooms do you have to pilot before you can go, we're good to go, we're going to do this across the board?
Yeah, so it's not a question of doing one pilot and then doing everyone. I think it's going to be an expansion over time, meaning, we start with one and maybe the next we're going to be doing 5, 6, 7, 10 classrooms. I don't want to commit to a number because we have to identify the classrooms and however many we can identify at the same time. I think it's important to remember, though, that there are still a few areas in which we and the Maryland Department of Health have been a little bit more reticent to just keep those kids in the classroom. Those are forced exhalation activities. So if there's an exposure during a music class, for example, an unmasked exposure during a music class where kids are singing and expelling their voice and the air in their lungs more rapidly, those are a little bit more high risk. There have been a number of chorus related outbreaks across the country throughout the pandemic. And so we're a little more, there's still going to be some areas where we're not going to go from everyone being quarantined now to no one being quarantined next week. We're going to look to expand to more classrooms, and so it won't be a 0 to 60 miles an hour. It'll be a gradual escalation over time, with increased classrooms being identified. But we have the capacity. Obviously, we brought in, I believe, 75 additional support staff to do test to stay, as well as the childhood vaccination and to support the testing. And so there is more capacity, certainly, to do many additional classrooms. But it will likely not be all students are going through test to stay certainly in the immediate future. It will not be, and we may not get to that point, until a few weeks or months down the road, particularly as vaccinations start to keep more kids in the classroom anyway. Okay. So, but we are looking to do many more classrooms after the Thanksgiving break, as was alluded to in the Montgomery County Public Schools announcement. I think it was last week or the week before about doing the pilot prior to the holiday.
Okay, and then I'll just bundle these questions up. Governor Hogan announced today 500,000 Abbott rapid tests coming to counties across the state. Did you get a heads up? Do you know how many you'll get? And then the next two I'll bundle up for the county executive. On the car rally and asking for assistance from police, what do you say to critics who say, Montgomery County wants it both ways? They want to reduce the role of police. They want to, take them out of schools, yet when they need help, they want the police to be there for them. And then on the other issue, Mr. County Executive, the other day when you spoke to our Neil Augenstein, you mentioned that people might want to try to live closer to where they work. And a lot of people took that as, are you kidding me? given the housing prices in this region. So if you can respond to that as well.
So we'll take that in order. Dr. Bridges, were you aware of the
Yes,
yeah.
yes, Kate. Thank you for that question. I believe the number that I recall was 8,000. I was trying to see exactly what that amount was, but we did receive some of the Abbott Buy Next Now rapid tests for individuals, those individuals who visit our local health department sites. If they would like to obtain a take-home rapid test kit, they can receive them with instructions on how to report if should, for any unexpected reason, any of the results are returned to be positive, and or if they are false positive. So there are specific instructions on what to do. We did receive those, I believe, last week, and they are available. Other than that, we will continue to receive additional kits and share them with our community partners as well. But we did receive them based on the governor's allocation pro rata.
I just want to add real quickly to that a little bit. So a couple things. We'll also be utilizing them hopefully in our employee testing programs to keep our employees vaccinated or not vaccinated safe in the workplace and protecting both the employees as well as those people they serve. In addition, I think Dr. Bridges got to this at the end with the community partners. We'll also be looking to target places where we know the virus is still spreading demographically as well as geographically. And also utilizing our health partnerships as a vehicle to get some of those tests out there, because we know the people who are working on the front lines, not necessarily just our first responders, but restaurant workers, retail workers, those people are the ones who end up getting exposed the most to this virus, and for whom rapid tests would be really effective ways to get them protected, as well as protect their coworkers should they get exposed. And the last point I'll raise on this is rapid tests are going to become increasingly important as these new medications that are being released and reviewed by the FDA, because they rely on utilization within 72 hours of known infection. And so rapid tests are going to be key to early identification of people who are good targets for those interventions should they be approved by the FDA. And so we're looking to, obviously, as those drugs are made available nationally or approved and then made available nationally, assuming that they are, we're looking to understand how we can use rapid tests to more effectively tie that to a treatment profile as well. Next question was on police wanting it both ways. I think, Mark, you were saying that, and I'm happy to.
Yeah, you're happy to skip that.
No, I'm happy to add.
I'm joking. Look, nobody wants it both ways. We've been very clear. There's a whole bunch of things related to mental health issues and things we don't think the police should be dealing with. We want some of these things that they've traditionally dealt with, which are the most difficult and for which they are the least equipped, such as not having mental health training and the ability to deal with people other than with limited policing tools. We want those things shifted out of the purview of the police. No one ever said we don't want the police to do anything. This is a perfect example of where police need to be engaged, because these people are actually seriously endangering the community. They've done it in multiple times. They've done it on the Beltway. Sooner or later, someone is going to get killed from this stupidity. And this is the kind of thing police officers should do. And when they do their jobs, the issue, and I've made this also clear to people, that the biggest concern is the interactions. I mean, police are often doing things that, you might not debate, why are you doing this? But the interactions that have occurred have been the things that have been most problematic. And so how people go about doing their job is really critical to what we're trying to get to. Policing that acknowledges and is a little more sensitive to people's rights and how you treat people when you're policing them, and policing where it belongs, taking care of the problems that are, high priority, and not being tied down by things that really don't belong in the police department. So, to me, there's no conflict between wanting officers to be involved in something and also wanting officers not to be involved in other things, and certainly whatever you do, to do it in a way that doesn't create more problems within the community. Police obviously can do that because our police officers do that most every day. So just to be clear about what we're trying to deal with here. As far as my comment to Mr. Augustine, he was talking about the small number of people who use that bridge, that ferry, and the long distances people travel. And, as I pointed out to him, the Transportation Policy Board of COG did a review of all the projects that were in the DC area pool. I was not on the reviewing committee. They looked for what they thought were high value projects. This project did not rise to the level of a project that COG would recommend. Was I happy with their recommendation? Yes. But I'm also happy that they made that recommendation based on data and the study they did. It is not a good thing. And if people are upset about, that drive is so terrible, I've got major transportation projects that would solve other problems in this county for people who spend a long time driving even shorter distances. And if I'm going to prioritize my funding, I would certainly prioritize it for folks in Montgomery County who need transit, who needed better ways of moving around this county. And if I'm living in Frederick and beyond, and I'm going all the way down to the American Legion Bridge to go back up to Leesburg, I don't know what to say, but it doesn't make sense. But I wouldn't build a bridge for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Last thing on police salaries, you mentioned how much of a boost would you give police?
Well, we had originally, I think, proposed at the starting salary, a $5,000 increase. I think that was the number we used. We do better in the mid-range and the upper range, but we get killed. And this isn't the only department. We're looking at this. There are places where we compete. We do not do well at starting salaries. And no one's going to wait, 5 or 10 years and experience 5 or 10 years of lost income when they think about what they could get in another police department. So we need to adjust our salaries, particularly at the lower end of the band. And hopefully that this is where we will go with this. We do salary studies and we just don't compare day one, but we look at our bands throughout the time period that a person might be an employee. So we want to be competitive.
Got it. Thank you very much. And thank you to the other reporters waiting.
Back to Kevin Lewis. I think make sure that you are back. You want to still ask your question?
Yeah, thank you so much. County Executive Eldridge, I'm reporting today on carjacking numbers and still waiting to get an update from police, but 2021 numbers appear to have surpassed 2019 and 2020 combined. What's your reaction to that figure? And in addition, what would you like the county and the police department to do to try and curb this unsettling spike?
Well, the spike is unsettling, and it's little comfort that this is the kind of stuff you're seeing all over the country. Because when it happens here and to you, people don't look at it in the framework of, well, this is what's going on nationally. Obviously, something has changed out there in social conditions, and we seem to be experiencing more people doing things that they should not be doing. Our police have, I'm not going to describe everything they've done because we don't want people to know everything they're doing. Make it easier if you're doing something to figure out how to avoid it. But they've stepped up in Silver Spring. They've spent a month changing their tactics and some of the things they're doing there. They feel they're making progress. We think we're going to see evidence of that progress when we get the data from them. And this is going to be an ongoing thing. I'm not looking to bump down numbers for a month and declare victory. I'm looking for something that produces permanent changes in the numbers we're experiencing in Silver Spring. I think they've got some strategies that will be useful to us. And I'm confident they're going to continue to push on this.
While it certainly has been countywide, downtown Silver Spring looks to be getting just a huge percentage of these carjackings, including one overnight. Why downtown Silver Spring? There's other, parts of the county that are high traffic urban cores.
high traffic urban cores, but not multi-jurisdictional, where you can, in a matter of seconds, go from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. You know, we have 3 very close jurisdictions. When I was a Tacoma Park Council member, we had the same problem because we were, you know, close to the district and close to Langley Park. And there were, you know, real problems with people being able to commit a crime and then go a couple blocks and be in a different jurisdiction. And that's one of the vulnerabilities that Silver Spring has. So they have stepped up what they're doing. They're looking particularly at traffic crossing the borders, both going in and going out, and cooperating with their surrounding jurisdictions. So, you know, I've asked for and have got an upgraded response to the problem there, and we'll see what the data shows us. And we'll keep increasing what we do until we get data that looks like what we want.
Final question on this topic. With regards to, so we've covered the catch section, or the hopeful catch section. When it hits the court system, what do you want the state's attorney's office to do with carjackers who presumed innocent until trial, but if they plead guilty or are found guilty, what type of sentencing do you think is appropriate?
Sentencing, well, you're asking me 2 different questions. Philosophically, I want people to spend time in a facility where they get rehabilitated. That's one of the better things about the jail in Montgomery County. There is and has been for many years an effort to try to rehabilitate and re-enter people into society so they can get work. I mean, I always think that that's the most important thing we can do, is change how people look at the world and look at their opportunities in the world. If all they do is arrest them and then incarcerate them, and at the end of that, they leave with both a prison record and no improvement in their skills or their ability to navigate the world, then I think that explains why you get such high recidivism. But I do expect the sentences to be meaningful. It is equally useless to take somebody who's endangered somebody's life, who, you know, forced them out of a car, who, you know, may have used violence to do that, and just take them in there and send them out the next day. So there's got to be a place where it's distasteful enough that you don't want to experience it, but we've got to figure out and do the work that's needed to help people find another way to interact in this society other than to interact as a criminal.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving with your family.
You too.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Our next question goes to Steve from Bethesda Beat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Returning to the kind of news that you all put out about the new ARPA funding. I know that bill passed out of Congress in March, but, you know, there's obviously a lot of strings attached to how this money can be distributed. Just can you go through the process of what that's like and getting this second tranche, for lack of a better term, from this bill kind of ready to release to the public? Because obviously I know you want to get it out as quickly as possible, but like I said, there are strings attached to how this money can be used.
Dr. Stoddard, you want to take the first stab?
Yeah, I can take a step. So a couple things with the ERA2, we are looking at the eligibility requirements to see whether we can expand that. Obviously, we got a lot of applications in phase 1, and actually that's in large part why we're getting so much more funding in phase 2 than we were expecting, or at least more. I don't know how much, so much more. I shouldn't say it that way. But so we'll be looking at eligibility to get this right, but obviously there are federal requirements around the information that is provided, and we're looking to make those more efficient. So at the county executive's direction, we've been working with some of the large providers, the Montgomery Housing Partnerships, the organizations of large scale and size who house a lot of residents who may qualify for this program, to see how we can more efficiently and effectively get the information entered in a more rapid fashion, so we can get those dollars back out the door as quickly as possible. But it is obviously, you know, in a given year, we give out a few $1 million, and over the pandemic, we've been giving out 10 times that amount, which is, you know, it's bad that people need it. It's great that we have the resources to give out, but it also presents tremendous challenges for us organizationally to be able to distribute these dollars in a way that's both fair and equitable, rapid, but also consistent with the federal regulation. And so it is certainly a challenge for us. It's certainly a challenge across the country. It's across the state of Maryland and elsewhere. But obviously, we've made tremendous progress and provided a lot of resources out to the public that we're very grateful the federal government, the federal delegation who advocated for it has gotten us.
And, you know, 34 million of this round of rental funding, 7.7 for those health programs, and 6.8 for food security efforts. Anyone can answer this, just kind of the methodology or reasoning behind the breakdowns for that, just how you just came to those numbers.
So with obviously each of so first the housing rental assistance program, that was just we get an allocation from the ERA2. That's the number we're getting. We put it into the council, and we get approved for that. For the food and the other category, those are based on needs that are developed by the programmatic side. So they'll go through and they'll look at, I'll take food as an example because I'm pretty well versed in this. They looked at the amount of resources that they thought they needed to sustain the efforts that we've really focused and established throughout COVID, in partnership with our community, the community organizations and nonprofits, religious institutions who are very active in this space. And so they did a needs assessment of what we thought the community needed based on what those partners were telling us. And then we figured out a period of time that funding would be good for, largely through June of next year, to give us a good baseline. And then obviously we asked for those amount of resources to be able to provide out. And so it's based on an assessment that's done of the needs within the community, of the capability that we have to get resources out. And that's largely what dictates in the case of the other two categories. The first category is obviously just the federal government has deemed it is appropriate for Montgomery County to get X dollars, and that's obviously what we're putting into it.
Kind of jumping, frogging right off that, you know, a lot of people are focused on the rent relief money, but what is demand like with, you know, food drives and what throughout the counties? It's still pretty high. I know early on in the pandemic, we saw that across the country, that food lines were much longer. And I just kind of want to highlight that, you know, that 6.8 million and how important that's going to be toward those efforts. I guess, can you just expand on that?
Yeah, so I think that the Maryland Food Resiliency Council released their annual report earlier this morning. I saw an article on that, and so we've seen the same thing. We're a microcosm of what the state of Maryland and what many jurisdictions across this country have experienced, and that is the economic impacts of the pandemic have been disproportionate in and of themselves. Those at the bottom, those making the least amount of money, typically were the ones who were put out of jobs because they were, you know, they either saw a huge reduction in restaurant patronage, or restaurants were closed, or any number of those things, you know, restaurants and other retail settings. And so the workers in those locations bore the brunt of the economic loss. And so obviously there's been a huge increase in the amount of food demand that we have seen. And that food demand is exacerbated by the uneven economic recovery. And so we're still seeing pockets where opportunities and food are needed. In addition, I think the pandemic has brought attention to something that was there before the pandemic. There were people in Montgomery County who were going hungry before there was any economic interruptions. And now, because we understand that better and we realize it better, we feel that we have a responsibility to help address it, not just by providing those people food, but identifying who we provide food to, getting them enrolled in other social service supports, and have a more integrated system, so that hopefully we can get them into a position where we don't have to provide them food. Instead, we can get them into a sustainable setting and environment where they can, you know, have a job and be able to provide for themselves and their families. And so obviously it's not just about, the old proverb of, giving someone fish versus teaching them to fish. I think that's sort of what we're looking to do with the food resiliency as we transition from the food security task force during the pandemic to a food resiliency program moving forward. We're looking to integrate more with services that allow for people to be more sustained.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. I mean, I've met with a bunch of folks who've been providing food assistance throughout the pandemic, and the message I've pretty much gotten from everyone is the demand is not really going away. Even as we hear about, rising employment and, more people going back to work, they continue to see very large numbers of people still struggling to to buy food and to meet their basic needs. So this is not disappearing as quickly as people thought it might disappear, and they've all said that, you know, one of the things they were aware of is this need was deeper than they had ever seen. I mean, there are a lot of folks who, you know, never came out for assistance who probably could have qualified and should have come before. And I think the pandemic pushed them into even more extreme, you know, if they were short of money before, but working a little bit, the pandemic may have, you know, driven more of those families into the point where there was no way for them to scratch by. And more people came for assistance. So we're actually having a meeting later this afternoon to talk about this very topic. I've talked to, you know, providers who said, you know, because of lack of refrigeration, they've not been able to either take meat or they've not been able to even keep the meat they've been provided safe, because they don't have the ability to move it fast enough or to store it for, you know, the next day or the next couple of days. So we've got problems we're continuing to look at and we're going to address.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. Is it income, and anyone can feel it, is it income qualifiers for when you're going to these kind of food drives, for lack of a better phrase, or how do you kind of qualify to, you know, if you need help? Is there anything that the county's
We
doing
don't
to make
call,
sure that,
you
okay.
pull up your car, you walk up, you say you need food, we give you food.
So it's
The
an honor
boxes are
system,
pre-packed.
honor system then, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha. No, thank you, everyone. And to echo Kevin, have a happy and nice Thanksgiving.
Steve, did you want to ask your question about the health? I didn't answer this yesterday when you texted me, but I'm happy to do it now if you'd like.
If you want, yeah, if there's any update there.
Mark, do you want to give the update on where we are with the health officer position?
We're close. We've interviewed. We have to go through the state. So we'll provide the state with our first choice. They have a role to play in this. This is a joint appointment of my department and the governor, and hopefully they will agree with our choice here. I would expect them to defer, because this is they do work with us first and foremost, and they're in the county. But that's the next step in this process.
So you have a name finalized that you've sent?
I have a name that is very close to being finalized.
Okay.
Yeah, just to, Steve, to give you a little. So obviously
I'm not being cagey. Literally,
Yeah.
we've got to go through the
No.
step of finalizing.
Yeah, and then we haven't. I don't think we've at this point told the person that they're the person, because we have to connect them with the Maryland Department of Health, and they have to interview with Maryland Department of Health. Assuming that goes well, we'll have to do a background check and then make a conditional offer. Then they'll have the opportunity to accept, and then their name will be submitted to the county council for their consent.
Was it a pool of like 5-10 names, I guess, when you're narrowing down? I know you probably, just details on that, I guess.
There were a lot of names interviewed by the Department of Health and Human Services. Dr. Bridgers was part of those round of interviews. And then there were 3 interviews conducted with county executive and chief administrative officer, myself, ACAO, Mora, and special assistants to the county executive. And so we are at the point now where we've done those interviews, and I think we're ready to move a particular person forward for the next round.
I will say, we've got a really good team. Dr. Bridgers was with us through this whole thing, worked, side by side with us and with Dr. Gales. And, COVID hasn't thrown us any new curveballs. So we haven't had to deal with any surprising situations. So I feel like, we've been able to maintain, complete consistency in what we do and how we've done our planning. And I want to thank Dr. Bridgers for that, because it was really helpful to have somebody who could step in and do this and maintain the confidence that everybody had that we were dealing with this effectively.
So thank you again, everyone. And like I said already, happy Thanksgiving.
All right. And also from Bethesda Beat, we have Dan Shear with a question.
Hi, County Executive Elrich. Just going back to the the car rally in Silver Spring. I know that you mentioned this has been a regional problem, and I know Dr. Stoddard said the same thing to me yesterday. You also mentioned that some of the vehicles were from out of state. Do you guys have a sense at this point, like with these car rallies, like what proportion is from either out of state and what proportion is from somewhere in the region? Do you all have that information, or?
I don't think anybody's massively captured the license plate information.
Yeah,
one of the things we're looking at is how to enhance our ability to capture license plates.
Will there be? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we have a percentage breakdown, because if we knew all the license plate numbers for everyone who was involved, we might be responding very differently than we are right now. I think we're still doing part of that investigation. We do know, and if you peruse some of the videos that have been posted online, you can clearly tell some of the out-of-state ones because they don't have the front license plate as required by the state of Maryland, and so not even covered. They don't have the slot for it. And so you can tell typically some of the vehicles, even if you can't make out the license plate, that there are many vehicles that are not from the state of Maryland or not licensed in the state of Maryland, or registered in the state of Maryland, I should say. And so we know it not just anecdotally, but based on video evidence, but I don't think we can do a distribution of which states and contribute what percentage. But it is certainly, this group is clearly not a Montgomery County specific group. They are a group that is seemingly moving around between several states and doing these rallies in different places, different times of the year.
Okay. Do you all think, it sounds like you might already be doing this, but will there be sort of a regional approach to dealing with this problem, or is that the idea?
But the idea is, is to see what we can do to share intelligence and mobilize resources. Maybe we're, working with the state police, because we knew they were present in Prince George's County. My reaction to that news was, did they follow these people into Montgomery County? Because when they turned around, they came back into Montgomery County. We need to make sure that everybody is coordinating and that we just don't stop somebody at one point, and then if it's no longer our problem, not reach out to the other folks and make sure we're working together to deal with it. So I'm looking for a more coordinated process here. It's not like they have these things every day where they're experienced in it, but we've had too many, and we need to make sure they've got a stronger response and a coordinated response.
Thank you, and y'all have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
All right, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Dr. Stoddard, you just raised your hand.
I just wanted to say, certainly on behalf of myself, I just wanted to say I appreciate all the reporters who have been on these calls for the last really 2 years. Appreciate you all. Thanks for getting the messages out there. Very much appreciate that. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You all do play an important role in getting messages out to the community. I always thank our residents for listening, but they wouldn't have messages to listen to, because not everybody goes on the county website and sees what we're thinking about. So to the extent that you all have been effective in telling people what we're thinking, why we're doing things, and why it's important to listen, your role is not a small one in helping us reach out to people and make sure they understand why we're doing what we're doing and how it's going to make a difference. So thank you.
And thank you, Mr. County Executive and Dr. Stoddard, for allowing me to be part of your executive team.
Been a pleasure.
Okay, so again, thank you all. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And also, as you're putting the word out, 2 things. One, make sure that if you know people who are in the age of 5 to 11 and they haven't been vaccinated, our clinics will be open, and there are plenty of places that they can go. This is a great time to get them vaccinated because there's no school, so do that. Also, remember, as the county executive, others said, boosters are available to everyone 18 or older, so please take advantage of all the places that you can go get that booster shot. And last but certainly not least, Small Business Saturday is coming up. Shop local, shop Montgomery County, and follow us on social media because we'll have a lot of things going out about Small Business Saturday as well. So thank you very much. Have a great holiday, and we will see you all next week.
Ethic. And Clintstone's doing precisely that.
I'm particularly appreciative